everyone. I'm Helen Maria Biju, founder here at Embrace Minds. It's an absolute joy for me to introduce Simone Sharma today. At just 18 years old, Simone is the founder and executive director of Youth Grow Youth, a global initiative that's impacting 60,000 students worldwide. Her remarkable achievements include receiving the United Nations WE Award, being honored with a Harvard Innovative Fellowship in 2022. Simone's dedication to empowering underprivileged girls through her collaboration with UN Women showcases her commitment to lead the change. We're honored to have you here and to listen to your insights on one of the most pressing problems that we're facing today, which is educational inequality. Thank you so much for joining us once again.
Thank you for having me, Helen. Once again, I love absolutely everything your organization is standing for.
All right, so let's start with your organization, which is Youth Grow Youth. Tell us, what was the initial inspiration or driving force behind creating such an organization and, becoming the voice of change?
So when I first launched Youth Grow Youth back when I was 16, um, that was about 3.5 years back, my vision was very deep rooted in being able to provide support and opportunities to young people who, like me, were searching for various avenues to grow both professionally and personally. Honestly, having faced challenges in accessing opportunities and resources myself, I firsthand knew what it felt like to miss out on opportunities that could help me grow. And I was very determined to create a platform that would realistically bridge these gaps for others. And all in all, my goal was really to be able to establish a global platform, a global network that could connect youth to a diverse range of resources and opportunities, really giving them a platform that they could fall back on, you know, because as a student coming from a CBSE background, it's funny how I quote this all the time, everywhere. I was taught one thing, and that was if you as a student want to be the next individual to crack Yale, MIT, Harvard, and Stanford, all you needed were grades. And there's nothing wrong about it, but nobody spoke about extracurriculars, nobody spoke about anything beyond academics that could help me thrive. Again, professionally and personally, it was all grades and it got so hectic. And that was a realization point where I'm like, mm, it's time to do something different. Things aren't working out good enough for me. Grades were all good, but it was also important to realize that there are various different aspects that an individual as a student has to focus on in order to holistically grow. And that is when Youth Grow Youth began. And it started from a very, very tiny, small personal project and eventually grew into a beautiful, vibrant community driven by absolutely wonderful volunteers who, like me, share the vision and the passion for empowering young people worldwide.
Oh wow, that's particularly inspiring because in a lot of cases, many students miss out the extracurricular and the holistic approach when it comes to applying to universities. That's also like a main part that universities are looking for that many students aren't
Absolutely.
aware of. Many schools they only focus on the learning pursuit, only the academic pursuit, but never the outside scope. So wonderful, the fact that Youth Grow Youth is pushing towards that and bringing about the change, that's truly inspiring. Speaking of like a nonprofit organization, obviously there are a lot of challenges that people face running a nonprofit. So could you tell us a little bit about the most demanding challenges you faced and how did you overcome them?
So, in terms of challenges, there were tons that came back and forth, but I think it was really all about how you tackle them. For me, however, the biggest challenge was definitely launching a nonprofit at the age of 16 amidst the everyday chaos of school and managing my social life and sports and all of it. And I felt I really had to navigate the business landscape, secure the resources, secure the partnerships, all of this with limited experience in hand. And as much as I was passionate about it, I knew I wasn't as experienced as a 20 or a 22-year-old running a nonprofit, right? And that doesn't mean as a 16-year-old, I'm short of opportunities or ideas to curate something just as big. But it is only to say that experience was limited, so that did hamper quite a bit of work that I could potentially do. But how I overcame this essentially was really by leveraging online communities, seeking mentorships, talking to people about my idea and saying, hey, what do you think about it? Do you think I could do something differently? Do you think there's something that could have gone better? You know, picking up these insights from mentors specifically um, that were coming from the edtech industry was massively helpful. And really just being curious about the everyday to day work because I started this out of deep passion and I knew I wanted to make this big, really wanted to help people as much as I could. So I think I'd just say an everyday curiosity, lots of mentorships, a lot of feedback, putting yourself out there was very impactful. And it wasn't just about finding solutions, but rather creating them from scratch and proving that with passion and grit, age is really just a number.
Wow, wow, yeah, yeah. You never hear that statement being used in the way you did, actually, age being a number, but also the fact
I,
that
I,
you take
I
the risk,
really,
you know?
really, no, I think that as a statement is something I absolutely live by. Also because I've seen so many times that there are people picking on young people, 14, 15, 16-year olds doing things like, no, hang on, let them do what they're doing because they know exactly what they're doing, right? So it's something that I totally live by.
Wow, wow, definitely. Especially in the current world, I feel like the youth should also have a space to voice their opinions and bring about that innovative change. Definitely. So now that we've looked into some of the challenges, could you walk us through some of the most significant accomplishments that you faced, especially like how far since YGY has come since 2021?
Absolutely. So we started Youth Grow Youth in 2021, like you correctly mentioned. Receiving international recognition for our work has been an incredible honor and a beautiful validation of our mission. And that is to be able to help every young individual, regardless of their background, regardless of their age, regardless of who they are, really access the opportunities that they deserve. And these accolades, such as the Harvard Innovative Fellowship, the She Inspires Young Achievers Award, the Global Youth Awards back in London last year, really just celebrate our achievements, but also highlight the impact that we've managed to create on a global scale. And that is what is important to me. Being recognized on these platforms is very humbling. But more than anything, it really fuels our motivation to keep pushing boundaries, keep doing what we do, keep showing people that things that seem impossible are really not that impossible and that they can be done. So I would say for me, for the team, it serves as a reminder that our efforts to create accessible resources globally are truly making a difference. And all of these recognitions really encourage us to keep striving for absolute excellence and really just keep amplifying our impact.
Wow, wow. Speaking of impact, though, I wanted to ask you, how exactly do you go about measuring the impact of Youth Grow Youth's, initiatives and the communities you serve?
That's a brilliant question. In terms of how we measure, we conduct multiple different online events. There are tons of offline events, but we try and measure our impact via online stats. The number of people we have actually been able to reach out, realistically helped, and just understand the numbers that we are curating to directly. So social media metrics work really well. We have a dedicated team that works around these numbers, keeps us in check, and on an every day-to-day basis tracks the number of reach outs, the number of individuals reaching out to us, and how many resources are being reached out to which region across the world. So yeah, that keeps us in track.
Definitely. Oh, that's cool. You know how we kind of amalgamate both online and like the tech world to kind of, boost the impact that YGY is doing. Wow. Also, I wanted to ask you, when we think about it, especially me as a high schooler, getting extracurriculars and internships are pretty daunting for us. The opportunities are very limited, but especially in regions where there are socio-economic barriers or culture barriers, these challenges worsen even more. So, how does Youth Grow Youth go about navigating so that we can, in the end, ensure inclusiveness and participation across all the diverse communities?
Okay, that is such a brilliant, such a needed question that you've asked. A quick stat that I want to point out is that today there's about 40% of the world's population that consists of young individuals. And it's so saddening how, despite that, there's so many individuals that lack the resources that they need for professional and personal growth, just due to factors such as their backgrounds, their castes, their color. And it's really, really heart-wrenching to see this inequality, especially when it goes unnoticed. Everybody knows the problem exists. Everybody knows that this is happening. But the fact that not a lot of people are standing up to voice it out and really do something about it, especially when, education is such a vital factor for an individual, is upsetting. And when I found this out for the first time, I'm like, you know what? I need to do something about it. As much as it is about giving quote unquote the privileged students access to these opportunities, it is equally important to make sure that there are students who may not be as lucky as us, who are also being availed of these opportunities and not really being deprived of them. Because I feel as a young person, you deserve every chance to reach your full potential, no matter your starting point, right? And I think this conviction is the driving force behind Youth Grow Youth and my passion for empowering people. It's both incredibly motivating and humbling when I say we've impacted over 30,000 underprivileged students across India today, those in government schools, those in, you know, areas of poverty within India. Because again, at the end of the day, regardless of your background, you deserve access to opportunities, right? So, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It does, it does. It's really inspiring, how you're kind of stepping away from just your own resources, your own community, but also Youth Grower Youth is like reaching out to communities across India, but also across the world as well. So definitely something that we would like to opt as well in Embrace Minds. But also I feel like the youth should be aware of the many difficulties that people are facing around the world. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely.
Um, Now, Youth Grow Youth has got so many recognitions, so many awards that's been recognized for your mission and vision. So, has those recognitions had an impact on YGY? If so, how? In terms of like financing, your future mission and your future goals and such?
Okay. So again, for me, these recognitions are nothing but a validation towards the impact that we're creating. These awards definitely stand as a point of connection to a much bigger audience and a much, much bigger world. Also because a lot of these felicitations and awards are on a global scale. So they do definitely bridge that gap between us not being able to access a wider audience to really being able to connect with them because of these platforms. Each of these platforms are incredible, run by some brilliant, brilliant change makers from across the globe. So we definitely do get the platform, the chance to be able to connect with a lot of like-minded individuals trying to create a real difference in the world. A lot of resources come with it, depending on, what platform chooses to recognize you. Um, and besides that, um,
Are
yeah,
you
I think all in
benefiting
all,
from
it's
any partnerships in specific?
Harvard fellowship that happened 2.5 years back, where we became one of India's first 20 student-led startups to get accelerated by Harvard, was brilliant because we did get to connect with tons of Harvard mentors directly. We did have access to a wider range of resources and pools that was not as widely accessible to everyone, but because we did get the fellowship, it did come along with that. So in specific, I would talk about the Harvard Fellowship being a massively, impactful fellowship for us.
Wow, wow, that's great. Thank you so much for that. Let me talk a little bit about yourself. I've heard you're an amazing poet, you're a writer, and you're also a basketball player. So how do you go about managing, all these, such an amazing extracurricular pursuit, but also your major at the University of Bath and Youth Grow Youth. So there's like a lot of things on your table. How do you go about managing them?
That is a tough question. I was born as a kid who loved to do everything. Like, I wanted to do everything. I wanted to play sports. I wanted to make sure I'm doing debate. I wanted to write. I wanted to do everything. Um, I think it's just in the blood. I'm an army brat, and I'm just like everywhere because it's what we're sort of, um, you know, I don't know. It's just that's
It
a
just
lovely
comes with
question.
you.
It's really lovely
It's
thing.
in, no, but I feel like you're very passionate in all these things. You're maintaining that passion and commitment in all of these things, which is not something we see a lot in people nowadays because when they kind of spread out in different tasks, they lose their commitment, they lose their passion. But Simone, you're just so committed in all the different activities you do, and it's particularly inspiring when we think about it. So, any useful advice for anyone interested?
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that, Helen. I would say, so you mentioned the word passion very, very precisely. And when I look back on my journey and how I am so closely tied with the things that I do, is because I understand why these things are important to me and why I'm doing it instead of just doing it for the sake of it, which is something that I see a lot of young people doing, where you're like, okay, fine, I have to do it because I want to build my college application or because I want to look cool doing it or whatever that is. I think these are really surface level things, but when you get to the root of it, saying, I want to do it because XYZ, you really get committed to it. Because without understanding why you're doing it in the first place, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your energy, right? So I'm very picky with what I do, but uh, even though I'm like jumping everywhere, I know exactly what I'm trying to do and why I'm trying to do it, which I would say has helped me this far. So really just understand why you are where you are and why you're trying to do the things that you're trying to do. If you want to work on your college applications, say you're starting an essay for Yale, sit to yourself and say, why am I doing it? Yes, I want to get into Yale, but is there a deeper meaning to it? Is it because I love the campus? Is it because I want to go and learn from that teacher? Is it because I want to be able to access Yale's um, pool of extracurriculars? Get into the nitty-gritty, and you automatically become connected to the process of what you're doing.
Thank you so much for that. That's truly useful advice. I want to move on to some of what the governments can do because when you think about it, governments play a huge role in ensuring equitable educational systems globally. So, are there any particular policies or like government actions that you would encourage to be enacted in the future?
Helen, can I ask you to rephrase that for me?
Yes, yes, definitely, of course. So, when we think about it, governments play such a huge role in creating an equal education system globally, right? Countries are so involved in this process. So, are there any particular policies or like laws that you want implemented that governments should kind of like push forward to in the future that would, boost this change or further this change that's happening?
Um, I think the quality of education, the disparity between the quality of education in various regions across not just India, but across the world is very predominantly seen, especially when you see a certain set of individuals doing better than the others. And I will round back to the very same point of mine about, our impact on government students and why we strive to connect with them is because having connected with these students firsthand, we do notice how they aren't provided with the best opportunities, with the best kind of education, not from anywhere, but the school themselves, the quality of teachers, the quality of books, the quality of everything. is very different from when you come to an urban landscape and see those students, right? So if there was anything, I think the quality of education has to very, very realistically and straightforwardly be changed. It is something that people should delve into more, at least as coming from a government perspective, to be able to implement changes and make sure that again, every student, regardless of what region or what background they're coming from, is getting the same level of education, the same level of teachers, the same level of books and pencils and slates and desks and benches can really change the entire ambience of an education sector so immensely, right? There are students who tend to drop out of schools only because they aren't happy with the level of education. And again, we're talking about government schools, we're not talking about these fancy, really cool schools. Students tend to drop out, students tend to not go to school because they're just so unhappy with how things are. So if this gets looked into, I think it's going to be a massive game changer for so many students across the world.
And I think this is a call to action for many of the government leaders out there, to bring about that change for government schools, especially in terms of
Absolutely.
resources and teachers and experience, and also training for teachers. I feel like that's also important. One of the things
A
you kind
hundred
of also
percent.
taught.
A
So thank
hundred
you so
percent.
much for that. Where do you see Youth Grow Youth in 10 years' time? Do you have like a plan, a vision for 10 years?
That is such a beautiful question. Um, so right now, I'm fully immersed in my studies in the UK, but my future plans are definitely centered around expanding the impact of Youth Grow Youth and really elevating it to new heights. Um, I do see this becoming big, although it never started with the idea of wanting to make it big. The idea was just, oh, I want to be able to help my friends, and I just want to be able to give people in my circle the opportunities that they probably did not have. But eventually, once we started creating the impact, I realized, oh, I do have the power to create impact. My team does have the power, and this organization does have the power. So I definitely see this as an organization that holds immense power to create global impact, and I will not stop doing that. So I definitely see myself being able to help more and more students come up with more programs, more policies, potentially further getting involved with the UN, um, to implement realistic policies around education that could be a game changer for students, really. And yeah, that for me is the goal with Youth Pro Youth.
Thank you so much for that. I do feel many of those things happening, especially with what Youth Grow Youth has achieved in that small time span. It's really possible for it to achieve so much in 10 years. So looking forward to all the changes as well. Let's go a little deeper into the impact in 10 years' time. Are there any specific trends or emerging trends or technology advancements that Youth Grow Youth want to capitalize to, promote this growing change?
Growing change. Super cool choice of words there. I love the choices of words, Helen. I will give you that. Um, the edtech is a massively growing industry. Massive growing industry. Everyone is coming up with very unique and different ideas to create an impact, you know. But for us specifically, we definitely aim at being able to utilize lots of artificial intelligence related ideas, products, and really see ourselves emerging into the concept of AI because it is booming right now. And if we can create the impact, um, 10x the number using AI, then why not? So that is the goal for the long term, and we definitely do see ourselves being able to create a larger volume of impact using AI.
Oh, wow, wow. Thank you so much for that. Final question. It's actually more like an advice you have for the students listening out there. what do you want to give them in terms of to boost them, help them achieve their opportunities, help them achieve their dreams? What advice do you have to students listening?
I thought of this like just very recently when I was having a conversation with a friend. And when we were talking about this, she asked me this, and I'm like, if there was anything that I could tell myself 4 years back, and I reflect this upon other young individuals that I could share this with, it definitely would be to um really throw yourself out there and do things. As cliche as it sounds, you have to be able to do things, because when you do things, it's only when you realize what you're good at and what you're not good at. And once you realize the things that you're good at, you can constantly leverage and become the best at it in the game, right? It really starts with starting. All of it starts with starting somewhere. And um my only advice is that you put yourself out there and experiment with everything, every kind of sport, every kind of startup, every kind of idea. Go around the world, pitch your ideas, talk about the things you're passionate about, throw yourself on social media if you want to create content. Put it out there. It's not going to be the best because you've just started, but at least you've started and you will learn and figure it out in the process of it. So put yourself out there, and it is only when you put yourself out there that you learn more about your likes and dislikes.
Thank you so much for that. I think there's a recent quote that I've heard, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And I
Oh,
think that quote resonates so much with what you've said. So thank you so much for joining us once again. It's an absolute pleasure, interviewing you, but also listening to the various ideas you have on educational inequality and also inequalities and opportunities. So thank you so much once again. And I hope we can collaborate sometime in the future to drive meaningful change.
you are so lovely, Helen. Thank you for having me. This was so lovely. Your questions were incredibly thought-provoking, and
Thank you so much for that.
thank you for having me.